middle schools, if kids bring them, they'll collect them and hold them all day. Like they grab them when the kids come in, lock them away, and then give them back. And this includes watches and stuff like that. The high schools right now, and we've been really loose. Like we haven't had district agreements. All the high schools do it a little differently, and I will say not consistently or well. I think.
I think it's like I think I've seen like from classroom to classroom. It just depends on teacher management.
It depends on the teacher management and like whether, because they're like collected at the door, and so some teachers are really good and are like, "Good morning, put your phone up," and others not so much. And so it's very inconsistent. The kids are on their phones at lunch and at free periods. So given the research, given our need to make sure that our school environments are like set up to best support kids, we are bringing to the board a full ban that would be bell to bell, which would only change things for the high school kids. So what this would mean is that if kids have their phones out at all during the day, they'll get like one morning and then it'll be taken. So the goal is that it would just be not there at all. Come on over.
Hey, John.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good, hi, Joe.
Good to see you.
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
I know
Hi,
that's
John. How you doing? Nice to see you.
Thanks for being here. We're talking cell phones.
Is he filming for the district or?
No, just independently.
Oh, okay.
I'm John.
Hi, John. I'm Jody.
Jody.
Nice to meet you.
And
I'm Lindsay.
Lindsay. So
Nice
good
to
to
meet
meet you.
you.
Thanks for being here.
Mainly because
John.
a lot of people can't
John.
be here, so this way we can just spread the word about what these conversations are about to other parents and people in the district.
Oh, this.
Yeah, it's just to spread the word. Yeah, Chris. Yeah.
Oh, Chris. And
Yeah.
where is he gonna post this?
Probably social media. Just
On social media?
Yeah. Just to kind of just share, because a lot of people can't be here. And
Yeah,
everybody has
yeah.
questions and everybody, you know what I mean? So just trying to keep everybody in the loop and
Alright. I guess I'm kind of okay, but yeah, I mean, I totally understand that. I just wasn't prepared to be on social media this morning, but that's fine. That's fine.
Chris, you're not going to show it. I don't know. Talk to Chris about it.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
I don't like being on it either.
So what'll happen if the new policy passes? And to be honest, I would say we're a little late to the game on full cell phone bans in schools. All of our neighboring districts have done this already. Garfield, RE2, Aspen have fully banned bell-to-bell phones. So what we're proposing to the board is no phones at school at lunch, no phones during free period. No phones in the classroom right now, probably as you know from your kids, mine as well. You know, if they're in art class, they're putting their headphones on, which is, they're disengaged and we have a lot of, there's a lot of research to support that a productive learning environment has kids' phones as far away from them as possible. There was some really interesting research out just in the last 6 months or so, and it was kind of crazy, but it was looking at grade point averages of kids as compared to where their phone is when they do their homework. And the further that phone was, the higher the GPA, like if it was in a different room versus like at the table. So we feel, I'll be honest, I think we're a little late to the game to have a full cell phone ban, but it's been helpful to see like how Aspen's implemented, how Coleridge, how Rifle have implemented, because I think it's kind of similar groups of kids. At least Coleridge and Rifle have like partially open campuses like we do, so their juniors and seniors can leave campus, like all of our kids can leave campus. So the goal would be that kids ideally leave their phones at home or leave them in their car at the beginning of the school day and don't pull them out at all. I think and I will say that the policy sets a rule, but it doesn't necessarily say how to implement. And so there is a burden of implementation that if the policy passes as written, that we'll be placing on schools to figure out like, how are they gonna navigate this? How are they gonna chase kids down, collect phones, but it's similar to, we have discipline processes and, but so it's just, there's some work that the schools are going to have to do about how to enforce it. What we've heard from a lot of our neighboring districts is like, it's a couple, 2 or 3 weeks of very intensive, warnings, taking phones away, putting them away, setting the tone, and then it kind of settles down. So that's what we're hoping. And to be honest, RE2 did their cell phone ban mid-year, and they just ripped the Band-Aid off and were like, we're done. And they had a couple years of a couple weeks of strong implementation, and then they were gone. And so that's what we're hoping for. One of the things, and if you've got kids in our schools right now that do clubs and sports, like there is a lot of communication with kids on their phones through clubs and sports, which is concerning to me from a liability standpoint, because if they're on Snapchat or social media with a coach, like we don't have eyes on how that coach is talking to students. And you know, our general policies is that our adults should never have a kid's cell phone. They just shouldn't have that number. And so the other thing that we'll be doing that'll kind of coincide with the cell phone ban is we'll be rolling out a new parent-student communication platform called Parent Square, which really brings all of our communications onto a platform that we can have eyes on all the time. Mm-hmm. So I can see what a soccer coach is saying to her team and what the kids are saying back. Parents will be able to see what, like if any teacher is communicating with a kid or a coach is communicating with a kid, parents will have optics on all of that. And what will happen for the kids is that they'll get communications, and I totally understand that like practice changes, it rains and they're moving to this field or they're moving indoors. We're gonna have to go back to probably like when we were all in school and they make announcements at the end of the day, like track practice has moved indoors, meet in the weight room, versus sending the kids a text, which I think is fine. But what'll happen is the kids can send, like for a cooking club that both of our daughters are in, if the organizers of the club, if a student needs to send a message to everybody, she can send it via Parent Square on her Chromebook, kind of as an email, and then what it'll do is it'll push to all the kids' emails, and it'll push to their phones so that at 3 o'clock or 3:30 when they get their phones back, it can pop up as a text, but it'll also be an email. So if they're on their computer in class working, they can see, oh, we're meeting at 3:15 here. So it'll still allow for kids to do that kind of communication, like kid to kid, but without a phone and on their computer with us seeing it, with their parents seeing it.
So it'll be on their Chromebooks like all the other apps where they're doing their math or Spanish or whatever.
You got it.
But then parents, we would download it just like Remind.
Totally, yeah. Well, yes, it'll be, actually I did
So
download
we would
it.
get a notification like when we get the newsletter or when we get the...
Totally, and it's not totally set up
Your
yet.
son hasn't done his homework in 5 days.
Yes.
Messages from...
Yeah, we're still in the Christina, and this is Christina Vargas, she's our bilingual communication specialist. I'm still figuring it out. We just got a couple people to log into the app to try to launch it. But that's exactly what it'll do. And to be honest, it'll be a lot tighter on crisis communications. So for example, we really struggle right now if there's a school lockdown to push out communications to every parent, because some people approve for a platform to go to their emails or a platform to go to text, and we almost have no way of communicating with everybody, all adults. And so this will really streamline that, which will be great. And then the other thing parents often tell us, we get too many remind messages all day.
Yeah.
And what you can do with Parent Square is you can
I
push.
I don't remember if
my
Carbondale
God.
sent it. I don't remember if
Yeah.
RFSD sent
Oh my
it.
gosh.
I have to go searching for it, and it's
And
really
then there's,
frustrating.
2 RFSD
Yeah.
ones. There's a newsletter from RFSD. There's another one.
Yeah.
And then I have all my old Aspen messages on there from the Aspen schools.
Yes, because
Yeah.
you're getting our multiple platforms, and if you have kids in multiple schools, this will push it all into one. So you can go back, you can see what we've shared.
And it'll be available on desktop better than this.
It'll be both. And I will say Parent Square is used by thousands of school districts, so
Yeah.
it's going to be better.
I love that.
I do. I'm so excited. We're cautiously optimistic that it'll just. I'm very concerned about the liabilities of kids and teens having random Snapchats out there that, frankly, as a parent, I can't access and see. And so I think this will really help. Parents will be able to see everything, have it all together. And what you can do is delay anything but an emergency and have one dump at one time. So you can actually set it so that hey,
That's
7 o'clock is the
great.
time when I want to look through all the school stuff. And so you can say, I don't want any messages. Now, if there's a lockdown or something crazy, that'll override it. But
The hardest
otherwise,
thing
you'll
with
get everything
Remind
at one
is
time.
You can't mark it as unread and then go read it later. So then I have to scan through 10 teachers, figure out who sent me the notification that I just glanced at when I was busy. So I think that for me would change my entire relationship with the Remind app if I could mark something as unread or send it later. because now I just try to copy the text and email it to myself, so it's pretty
Totally.
inefficient.
Yep. Super inefficient.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very
I think this will be much better.
And,
So,
when the time is appropriate, I do have a question on the cell phone.
oh yeah, actually, that's what I was just gonna. I want to make sure that we have time for everybody's questions.
Yeah, so when you said we're late to the game, what do you mean by that?
Say that again.
You said we're late to the game.
I think
Like
most
what game?
schools in the country have gone to like full cell phone bans.
Oh yeah.
Like I think we're late in adopting a full ban of cell phones.
Does that mean that we are still going to try and do that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So
yeah,
we're just
well,
late in what you're like.
We're late in making the decision. Yeah, we're the state of Colorado, the state legislature pushed a rule that said all school districts have to have a policy on this by the end of this school year. So they kind of pushed us, which is good because we were kind of like, we'll let the schools do what they're doing, but as a parent, I don't think it was working. As an educator, I don't think it's when I watch classes and kids are like, like
Not good.
Yeah.
it's just
drives
why
my
don't-
son
so-
crazy.
so
He begs
second-
for one.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be messy on the rollout, and I know that some of the schools are still kind of like, well, can they have it at lunch? Can they? And what we've heard from schools that have done it are like, lunch is loud again. Kids want to be there. Like kids are talking, they're interacting. Like they actually, even if it's an open campus, they want to be there.
So you're saying, like, for instance, at Coleridge, that's an open campus at lunch? And
Kids are not leaving to go use their phone.
leaving to
Yeah.
use their phone.
Which is kind of what we were worried about.
Or even just because a lot of kids also get lunch at school. So making sure that they are still wanting to like stay for that lunch.
Yeah.
That's great. We should use this as a case study for AVSC because this year all the kids sat on cell phones during bus time and lunchtime. I put my kid in the program for socialization, and it ended up just being torture and isolation. So that makes me really happy. The loud lunchroom analogy, that's outstanding.
So we're recommending to the board like not a full ban.
We're recommending a full
Oh,
ban.
that's good.
Yeah.
I thought you said that you were recommending that they can keep their phones on them, but not in the classroom.
No. We've heard
Well,
from.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm for that too. I just
Proper
reported to
program.
Mr. Logan and some of the administration at CMS that there was one child sharing pornography with other boys in 5th grade, and
Fifth grade.
yeah, and it's not like a child. My son doesn't hang out with this kid, but he's getting kids gathered around him, right? And that's how he got caught, frankly, because it was making a big, event. And so I love the fact that when my son's at school, kids that I wouldn't have him maybe exposed to outside of school, he's not now going to school and becoming vulnerable to stuff I'd like to protect him from at this age.
Yeah, similarly, it's funny. I have a senior and a freshman, and my family, we don't allow our kids to have social media until 16. My freshman hates it. But she does not she does not like lunch. She's like, everybody's on their phones.
Yeah.
I'm not in that world. And she's mad at me. But she's like, so I do want to go home because everybody's on their phone. And I'm with you. Like, I don't want that to be like, oh, what are you looking at? You
Well,
know?
it protects that kid too. The kids who like accidentally get into that, because it's a slippery slope, like clicking on things.
It's
So-
such a tough work. Like, and our kids, I'll be honest, like, because I have lunch. I was telling Sarah, I have lunch with a high school advisory council at every high school about once a month, and all year we've been talking about this policy. I've been bringing it to the kids, and they're so unhappy about it. Like, they're very frustrated, and you're not listening to us. And I was like, and finally, I was with a group of kids because I think they had worked on it like 2 or 3 times, like looked at a revision, and they were like, you're not hearing us. And you didn't take our input, and you're saying that every student, and I was like, I know. And at the end of the day, sometimes the adults decide for you, and I'm sorry, but that's where we're at on this. It was an interesting, it was a good conversation with them to be like, input is different than being an ultimate decider. And I've encouraged them to like come to the board meeting, share public comments. I don't know that I think by spring they're all kind of like done. But It's they're not. I mean, I want to make sure that the board hears that the students were not. I have not heard of us. I mean, at best, there's a couple kids in the room that go, okay, you know, but most of them are like, how do I even function without it? I'm like, yeah, we created that world for you, and I'm sorry. But, so it'll be interesting. So far, I was just looking at public comments and anticipate. So the board meeting's tomorrow night for the first read. Because it's a new policy, they'll read it 3 times before they approve it. There's a lot of public comment about it, and I would say 90% supports right now, like is supportive of the ban. And I get that, like, and I'll be honest, like I'm a parent with my senior who I am like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. You know, like texting her during the day, I changed your doctor's appointment. Like we're gonna have to figure that out. We're gonna have to change that. You know, I'm gonna have to go back to calling the school and saying, can you let her out at 2 instead of 1? I don't know. So we're gonna have to change practice. The one thing that we can do with Parent Square though is we'll be able, like you'd be able to text your kid and it'll go to their Parent Square email. So you could say like, hey, I will text you during your free period, and then they'll have their Chromebooks and they could check and get that message from their parents. So they still can have that communication, but it'll be through their school computer. I don't know if that's going to be perfect, but I do think for the families that are like, I need to be in touch with my kid all day, you know, I'm also like, well, we need to educate them from 8 to 3, so we need you to stop interrupting and, you know, like, make a tighter plan. So I think it's going to be some culture change. I know it's going to be messy. I think some of the school leaders have expressed like, how are we going to do this? How, you know, do we have the staffing to course correct? And, you know, I'm kind of like, and I'm not saying we're perfect on keeping vapes out of schools, but I think it's kind of similar. Like, you know, if a kid is vaping, you're going to discipline them. If a kid's on their phone now, you're going to discipline them. And we're going to try to set a tone and tenor that says these things don't belong here. But
is there an opportunity for those schools to collaborate to like roll out a plan? Because I feel like
totally,
like from my perspective, like everybody's kind of doing something different, and there's like a lot of inconsistency among schools, and so that's kind of one of my frustrations. It's like, how can we make things more consistent? And I know there's like different cultures because it's a big range, right? Like totally. Down Valley, like, so I just wonder like if there's opportunity for, or if there's encouragement to like come up with something consistent.
And
I don't know.
Lindsay, I mean, and you're so right, Lindsay, that we're always in this like push-pull of where are we. I always think of it as like loose and tight. Like tight as a district with similar expectations, and loose giving schools an opportunity to do things their own way. And I would say we've been loose on cell phones, and now we're moving to tight. And it's interesting, like the different decisions we make. But especially when it comes to parent communication, and having been a parent with kids in multiple schools, and like that inconsistency, I think is really frustrating, and I think detracts from our ability to communicate with parents and listen. So I do think, and I think cell phones are an area now that we have to be tighter on. But I hear you. There are things that we're not consistent on, and it can be frustrating. But
yeah, because it's like we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, if other schools have done this well, like copy somebody else's model and try it out and adjust from there.
You know, it's interesting. Our team, so we have a team, our executive director of schools, Joel Hathaway, really owns and kind of takes the lead on school culture, climate, discipline. And one of the things that we really worked on in the last 2 to 3 years is consistency and discipline. So that if you get caught with a vape in a bathroom at Glenwood Springs High School, the same thing's going to happen that would happen if you were in Forks. So we have this, we've created over the last couple of years this discipline matrix that kind of goes through if-then scenarios, and it's like dozens of pages long of all the infractions to try to get tighter on that. And Joel,
It does happen.
So vaping it depends on if it's your first offense, if it's second offense, but usually it's a call to the parents for the first offense. Pull up a chair, like calling parents. I can share if you want. There's definitely with like vaping, a couple of the things, and it depends on like which offense is it. It depends on what you're vaping. Are you vaping tobacco? Are you vaping marijuana? All those different things. There's a call to the parents. There's a if you're an athlete, there's a suspension, or like you sometimes get removed from a team depending on how many times. So athletes have kind of a separate set of consequences, and then there's often writing tickets for kids, like a minor in possession, with working with law enforcement. Sometimes law enforcement, instead of ticketing a kid, will send them to Youth Zone, which is a local diversion program for education and what do I want to say, counseling. So sometimes it's Youth Zone, sometimes it's a ticket, sometimes then if it's multiple offenses, we get into like suspensions around, like you're suspended from school for a couple days. So
And then as a rule, even on the first offense, and I don't know what the law in Colorado says about this, but on the first offense, are parents warned right away?
parents are supposed to be notified with the first offense.
First offense, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we got to be on the same page on this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so we have to be really tight on that. But it's sticky, and some schools do it better than others. To your point, though, about implementation, Joel leads our high school deans of culture, and they really work on how are we implementing discipline practices. I think a lot of the schools are kind of waiting to see how our community and board responds to this first draft of the cell phone ban. And I think, we're kind of, I know because I talk to the board a lot that I think we're going to have plenty of support for the current iteration. There's not a board member I know that's like, no, don't do this. So I anticipate we'll have strong support. What we're seeing from the community comments thus far is strong support. Lots of questions about like, how are you going to do it? I think after we get a sense tomorrow night, Joel and that team will start working on like, all right, let's tighten up. And they've already drafted kind of a like, here's some like scripts for what kids would say when you talk to the principal if somebody's got their phone out, and kind of operationalizing like step 1, step 2, step 3. The other thing that we've talked about doing, frankly, is taking our leaders and our deans and going to visit Coleridge, going to visit Rifle, and just walk around and see how they do it. How do they talk to kids? What are they doing? Because we're not the first to do this. But to your point, we want to get pretty tight on the response and what this looks like. And as any of you know who've been parents, like the more consistent your expectations are, like kids will need it, right? If you have high expectations, they'll step it up eventually. But it'll be messy. If it passes as it is, it'll be messy next fall, for sure. A little bit.
Will all teacher communication go through this app? Will things change all across the board? Because I hear a lot of complaints about parents not being able to keep up with all the information that's coming through. And I feel like, that's something that I'm here to talk about, and that is the opt-outs. For parents for the health curriculum. And I have 2 points on that. And the first being like, there's so many parents who don't even know what that is. They don't see the opt-out, and there's a lot of people who are not comfortable once they find out what their kids are being taught. And so I feel like there's a huge lack of transparency and communication with parents that needs to be streamlined. It also needs to be, they need to be able to access that curriculum right away to see what it is. It also, my big question for you is, why is it called a health curriculum when it's a sex ed curriculum? And the person that wrote it, the 3 R's curriculum, they specifically said this should not be called a health curriculum. It should be called a sex ed curriculum. So we got to call it what it is, be transparent, so parents can make a very informed decision about whether or not to send their kids. And then people are opting out, and their kids aren't getting opted out. They're like, oh, we forgot, oh, there was a mistake. That is a huge deal.
My opt-out went to spam, so it wasn't received.
You're kidding.
I ended up reviewing the materials, but I couldn't even access the video on the slideshow that I was sent.
The video was hard to load.
Yeah,
I had to
did have some problems with the.
I just want to say, it came home in the yellow folder. It was super obvious. There was a link to the curriculum, to the whole PowerPoint. I was frankly really Crystal River Elementary. My daughter's a kindergartner. I was actually really disappointed that it was pulled because parents didn't feel opting their kids out was sufficient. Everybody gets to make their decision. There was an opt-out option. People knew how to opt out. And I was pretty disappointed that there was sort of a vocal minority that made it so the rest of the kids could not receive that education. Teaching kids
are not talking to them, you think?
I don't know. Teaching kids the correct anatomical terms for their body is critical. It is one of the best ways to prevent sexual assault and abuse.
100%.
And these kids could not get that because other parents
We could always agree or disagree on how it's done.
We can agree or disagree on how
But
it's
people
done.
should just have the option, right?
They should have the option, and absolutely, and there was that option. and it's still
But not, it wasn't clear
Maybe
for
it wasn't
everyone.
consistent.
It wasn't.
Because like our teachers sent it out like a month ahead of time. You could opt out, like and they sent reminders. So maybe like the consistency.
It needs to be just really clear, because I've talked
Yeah.
to numerous parents. So it's great that you knew and you were aware, but this is a very personal issue for people about how it's taught. And so we need to have, it just needs to be super clear, super transparent, whether we agree or disagree with it.
Are you wanting more time for, like, are you wanting that timeline to be extended as in terms of when that communication is brought and
I think it should
and when it's
happen
taught?
when kids are going through like orientation. Like it should be like right out of the gate. Here's
think
what
that's an excellent
here's
idea.
when we're teaching it. Here's what's in the curriculum, and the other piece to that is the opt out is for kids, especially like middle school, high schoolers. A lot of parents aren't paying attention. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they're not paying attention. But there's only like a 1 or 2 kid opt out, and they go to the library with nothing to do. That is so awkward. They're like ostracized, and then they get into high school. They're begging their parents, "Please don't opt me out. Like I can handle it." And then it just needs to be transparent, and it needs to be called what it is. I just feel like
Are you worried that the student is feeling ostracized? Like, would it be better that you kept your kid home that day? Like, I'm just curious because, like,
I
if
agree.
you,
Something.
I'm just curious, like, what would be sufficient? Like, what would be a sufficient answer? Like, you know, like Halloween, there's an opt out. Maybe it's taught the day after Halloween, so you know it's coming up, and you can keep your kid home. But I feel like having it available is important, and not allowing a small minority to have dominion is also important, right? Like everybody should have the opportunity.
Small minority. I don't think that's correct. I think it could be a split. It could be 50-50. But I don't think it's a minority.
I think
I
it's
don't.
a minority. I think this was shown at the
We had
recent school
80%
board election.
pushback on 2023 when this came out.
I think if it's a
and
minority,
it's all
they're
documented.
They're still valuable, and we still have compassion for the minority.
oh, absolutely.
I love the point. I don't remember who made it, but I love the point about sexual abuse because, unfortunately, I do have a child in my close community was in high school assaulted, and the program did present a lot of like triggering maybe she felt a little victimized, a little triggered by the curriculum because it is so sexually explicit. In the high school, Principal Logan did assure me that a lot of the gender ideology, sexual orientation, you know, gender is a social construct is the definition in the program. That doesn't get introduced until 7th grade, according to Mr. Logan, because I did speak with him about it. But the point that you made that I think was brilliant was, and actually to piggyback what Jody was saying, I have worked with River Bridge. They obviously take care as best they can of children who have been assaulted. Maybe 10 years ago, I ran the Roaring Fork Moms Group, and we did very actively send out a notification to the moms that your children can't say, you know, tatas and booty. If they have to file a report, they must use anatomical terms. The doctor and the police will need to know exactly what happened and where. And so that might be something we include in orientation for families. Here are the terms that police and doctors need to hear. If you file a report, we might not be able to protect your child if they're using silly terms. And so that might be something we include in orientation so that families at home can take responsibility to really protect their kids and make sure they understand.
We all want to protect the kids.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I taught a preschool, but I would just love to hear from you.
Yeah, totally. No, I'm so glad.
Why it's called a health curriculum instead of a sex ed.
A sex ed, totally. Such a good question, and I'm grateful y'all are talking through this. Let me start way back because I think Jody, this will get to your questions. So we are required by the state of Colorado to teach standards, right? The state standards. And they're in every subject. And in Colorado, what's really interesting about health education, I'm going to be careful because I would say the answer, Jody, to be honest, is like, you're right. And I think it's that we're sloppy and that we just haven't clarified what we're talking about when we're talking about it. And so I want to be really careful because I do think that there's a lot in the current conversation that's come up that we've said, oh yeah, we need to be tighter. There are things that are working and parents are informed and know what's going on and they know the why, and then there's areas where we don't, or we're calling it the wrong thing and people don't know what it is. So in the state of Colorado, you have to teach health education. And if your local board decides to teach comprehensive human sexuality education, which is what the state of Colorado calls sex ed. So if your local board decides to teach comprehensive human sexuality in the state of Colorado, you have to teach it in alignment with standards that present a very inclusive definition of gender. It has to present, there's like a couple of bullets that if you're going to do comprehensive human sexuality curriculum in Colorado, you have to do a couple
Like
things.
a broader gender theory
Yes.
has to be included.
And it starts at 5th grade where you see these expectations in alignment for comprehensive human sexuality curriculum. So our board has decided, yes, we're going to teach comprehensive human sexuality. So us, as a district then responsible for finding curriculum, great, we have to hit these bullets to teach it that way. When we initially brought forward the 3 R's, it was actually part of a health education curriculum adoption process, and one piece of that was comprehensive human sexuality. Because if you think of like a health class, there's also nutrition and exercise and injury prevention and all these other topics. We had nothing before this curriculum. So before whatever 22, it was like the Wild West of what was happening in our health classes. And there was health classes at middle school and health classes at high school, and there was like this nurse body talk that happened sometimes, but it was very different. And so parents were pushing back at that time going, I'm asking to see this curriculum, and what this teacher is showing me and that are widely different. I don't see the standard, and it was a really fair push. So we then moved forward an adoption, because the board has to approve all our curriculum, of a health education curriculum, which nobody talks about. It's called McREL, Comprehensive Health Skills. It was adopted grade 5 to 12. It probably looks like everything you all took, it, like nutrition, why you don't do drugs and alcohol, like all the things. And that curriculum for the comprehensive human sexuality, the sex ed part, did not hit all the buckets for the state of Colorado. So then we also adopted the 3, not all of the 3 R's, a specific set of lessons for the 3 R's, not everything, but a committee proposed to the board this series, and if you've looked at it, there's a set of required lessons and recommended. And where we went beyond the state expectations was state doesn't expect you to do comprehensive sex ed or human sexuality until 5th grade. We actually said K4 for all the reasons you're naming about safety. And I would say there's a couple trends that were going on for us in our, kind of this theme around trying to keep our schools safe. And a lot of times we just, whatever's happening in the world shows up in school. So, our kids, we had incidences where we had little guys showing kind of hypersexualized behavior and inappropriate touching in K1, 2, 3. We had kids sharing and trying to access pornography on our district computers like as young as 4th grade. And we were like, you know what? We need to be safe. We need to have clear expectations. We need to start talking about this K4. And so there was a series of lessons that we adopted, really focused on body, like safe touch, safe relationships, reporting, proper names. And our committee that identified these lessons was really folks from Riverbridge. It was our pediatric physicians and nurses from our Mountain Family Health Center who runs our school-based health centers. It was our nurse team. It was our health teachers who really aligned those early lessons to safety.
Is there a plan to label it differently? Is there a plan
yes.
and make it so clear that we don't have to sit here and argue about who agrees and who doesn't agree?
This is not the health education. Because you're so right, Jody. And I think that, to be honest, we adopted this in 23. And if you were here, you remember it was a lot. There was a lot of engagement, conversation. The board adopted it. We went on to implementation. And I'll be honest, until this year, when one of the parents at CRES kind of brought it up, I have not heard anything about the implementation of the curriculum. what I think this current conversation has helped us identify is areas where we were either sloppy or inconsistent in the rollout, and we've also identified where we've got schools that are doing a really good job, where we never hear from parents, where they have, and I would say on average, because of this, the current conversation, the board did task me with like, hey Anna, go figure out like how the implementation's going. I'll be reporting back to them in the community on that at the first May meeting. I would say on average, we're seeing somewhere of like 5 to 10% of families opting out across the board, and it varies in waves. And I hear the feedback, like I think this has created a really important opportunity for us to go, okay, we adopted the curriculum, and the board also has an implementation like policy on opt-outs, and it sets, I would say, some basic parameters of what's required, how much time, how many communications have to be sent. I think what we've heard from this is we've got schools who also at orientation tell parents and hand out the curriculum, and they go, I know we're not going to teach this in February, but welcome to our school, this is coming later. We've got schools who do, like the nurses do parent education sessions and coffee talks, and parents can come and go through the curriculum with them. We've got schools that'll do, like book studies and parent talks, and then we have schools that are just doing the basic, like we sent it home twice. And I mean, we were talking about Parent Square.
So there are
and the
plans to make a change to make this more transparent, because then you're not going to hear all these people come to your school board meetings and be really frustrated.
Yeah, I think
because not all of us agree with the broadening gender theory.
100%, and parents need to understand, like
that is not a minority. That is, a lot of people just don't even know. They don't even. They're not up to date. They're too busy. This valley, they're too busy, and it's hard to keep up with everything. And so we need to trust the schools, because honestly, that will increase enrollment.
I think
I can't tell you how many parents I know that we're just leaving. We're leaving the valley. Yeah. We're homeschooling. We're going to private school. And we want our public schools to succeed. This is our future. Like, we all want this.
Yeah. No, I hear you, Jody, and I think this has given us a really good chance to say, where is this working? Where are we never hearing from families? Like, people are like, oh, I knew, I talked to the nurse, I had this thing. And where are we hearing concerns of it being inconsistent or unclear? And I think to some of the things we've done, you're right, like the terminology, what we call things matter. So I think you'll see us strengthening the implementation around that. I don't know that we'll change what the board has created on the opt-out policy, but certainly the board will set policy. Sometimes we'll do a regulation, which is more of a rule, and then we'll do like a protocol. So how do we do this thing? And I do think those are pieces where we've already started to look at, like, well, what's working well at Basalt Elementary? What's working well at GSES? And why are we hearing concerns at CRES? And how can we then take what's working well here and replicate it? And so I anticipate that we're going to get a lot tighter. I think most of the lessons, from what I know, are pretty much done for the year. And so I think as we go through the kind of my reporting back to the board, hear from the board who's been hearing from community, we'll probably, it's actually not probably, I mean, we'll be cleaning up our protocols and kind of how we have, kind of guidelines for school leaders on how to navigate, how to communicate, templates. And I think we'll be taking some of the best practices, because we shared, like 100%. Parents need to know what's going on. It needs to be accessible. They need to understand. They need to know how to ask questions. This stuff is incredibly personal.
What do we do with the kids? Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
What do we do with the kids if they're opted out? Like, yes, ideally, like, keep them home. I mean, if it's my kid, I'd keep them home. That's not always an option. Parents have to work.
No.
So, and we need to, there needs to be something, I would think, and I was told that you had said there'd be something set up for them.
So our policy and regulation, I'm not sure which one, if we were looking up there, like IHAM and IHAM-R, states expectations for what kids are given, and I think it's like I don't know exactly the language. So there is an expectation that kids are in a different learning environment and getting access to some sort of educational information if they're not in the classroom. And I share your concerns on, like, what we don't want kids to have is any sort of stigma or anything attached to that. And frankly, I would much rather, I would not want parents to hold their kids at home. Like, these lessons are like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, especially K4. Like, I don't want you to miss out on the other 7 hours of the day for that. And so I do think that that's an important piece for us to figure out what feels authentic, what doesn't feel like everybody's going over here, but you are going up, we do, if you've been in our elementary schools and middle schools, there is so much movement of kids. I'm surprised that we haven't figured out a better way to do this. So I think that too is going to be one of the pieces we're going to have to get tighter on, like, what are we doing as an alternate education activity? How do we make that real? How do we reduce any sense of stigma for kids, knowing that parents are going to want to teach this when they do it?
Because when people go and they speak, whether it's at a school board meeting or here, nobody gets to respond. And so could it, and that's not your decision for it to be an agenda item, but maybe you could suggest it to the board, because if it were addressed, I feel like you could calm a lot of people.
Yeah,
It would really, and
I think even the people who support it, like I support it, but I know like I have friends who have kids like, so my son or my daughter's in 5th grade, but like later on down the road it gets more explicit, and then she's like, whoa, I'm not really comfortable with that. And it seems like my understanding was it was adopted, but then there was a committee that made changes, but it's like I don't, because it was like we like this, but wasn't there a committee parent committee that made changes to it?
That committee I talked about that had like River Bridge and nurses, and that committee actually, because the 3 R's has, I don't know, 100 lessons, and we adopted like 20.
I guess
and so
there needs to be parent education, because I think my point of view is that as a parent, I'm trying to parent differently than I was parented. Like, we never talked about sex. So I think there's a contingent of, probably a big contingent of parents who are in that boat, who are like, you know what I mean? We're like talking our way through these kind of uncomfortable conversations because we never had them. And so I think that if there was a lot more parent education, like this is just talking it, like more community support, I think that'd be great.
That I can't remember the woman's name. I think she might work. Maybe she did work at River Bridge, but she works with Garfield County. And so she came and she wrote a children's book, I'm the Boss of My Body. And so it was a parent education night.
I went to live in Seattle. Like, there are so many books now, but
concept,
it'd be great to keep that going.
They handed out the anxious generation, maybe.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting if they handed parents at that same orientation something about the body that they can read with their kids, because those are really critical tools for protecting the kids. I ended up opting my son back in after reviewing the movie and talking to Principal Logan at CMS. I was like, all right, this seems okay. But then my son came home last night and said, you know what they told us? Some girls get PMS and menstruate, and some girls don't. Some boys go through puberty and some boys don't. And I'm like, wait, Principal Logan told me we were going to say mommies and daddies, all girls and all boys go through puberty. And so he was actually told something in the classroom that then I had to address with him. I said, well, maybe there's a medical condition or a cancer where a girl doesn't go through puberty, but I've never heard of that happening. We can do some research. We can grab, a medical textbook or talk to one of his friend's moms is a physician's assistant. Maybe we can talk to her about it. But I feel like I was told there won't be broader, gender theory, and then it got snuck in the 5th grade yesterday.
I think there absolutely are medical conditions and things of that nature, or just people that have really delayed puberty or get it really early. And I think, you know what, those kids are already going to have a hard time and already be sort of singled out. And so, I really struggle with people having a hard time saying most, because that's just sort of, there's always exceptions to every rule, right? And so most is generally true because there's exceptions to everything. And, if somebody's having a medical condition or somebody's getting their period really late, why are we trying to make that kid feel worse by saying kids are mean? Kids can be cruel. And we don't need to give them an additional tool that says, oh, this hasn't happened, you must not be a real girl or a real boy because you haven't had this experience yet. And so I feel the most I think as adults maybe we're hearing that and saying, oh, you're meaning this gender definition and everybody has their own opinion on that. you can take, I think, that completely aside and say, let's just be caring. We don't know what's going on with everybody else. We don't know their history. We don't know their medical conditions. We don't know whatever else. Like, most is true because things happen, and I think it's sort of the adults putting this additional reading into it and saying, oh, this is what it means, and I don't agree with that, and then it becomes really awkward for these kids where maybe we're just trying to take care of everybody in the community and make sure they feel safe and welcome in school, not making it easier for them to be picked
Medical
up.
conditions are very rare, and I understand, like, we want to love everyone. We want everyone to be accepted. We do. But do you have to teach all of the kids broader gender theory to make your point?
Well, and that's it. Here's the thing, in the state of Colorado, if you're going to teach comprehensive sex ed, you do.
Okay, then
Those are the standards.
parents need to be very clear on that. They need to know, and they can't be told it's not going to happen.
So
And it
that's
needs to be
why
consistent.
now I understand why you brought up retitling from health to sex ed. That seems more accurate.
Well, I'm right, because Jody's so right. I mean, when we talk about health education, we're talking about all of it, like nutrition, smoking, all the things. Bullying is part of health education. You know, comprehensive sex ed's just one unit in all of that. And you know, when kids are taking a middle school health class or a high school health class, they're doing all that stuff, and then there is this unit on sex ed, comprehensive human sexuality. Then I hear ya. Okay, you guys, we only have 10 minutes left. I don't.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Joyce.
Nope, and that's a difference,
That's
right?
a great question.
No, and that's the that's and those no, and remember that's where I was saying if you adopt yeah.
But that it starts before K4.
No, well, we definitely teach K4 lessons in kinder through 4th grade. But in the state of Colorado, if you're going to do comprehensive sexuality, the standards don't start till 5th grade, but they have to be gender inclusive. So that's, our K4 lessons are really focused more on safety. Like, that was our why. Why are we going beyond what the state expects? And it's really driven around safety. And that's why you'll see the lessons that were picked for kindergarten through 4th grade are more focused on safety, where the high school lessons.
The more likely it will be utilized.
And the kindergartners aren't awkward. Like, the kindergartners, they're like, okay,
It's like, does
cool,
a toaster have a
penis.
baby, or does a frog have a baby? It's like, it's so banal.
They don't
Your concern is the
have the
curriculum?
background. What am I awkward?
I mean, let me tell you what
Your concern
I'm
is about
hearing.
curriculum or how it's being taught?
They're more accepting than adults.
Both, but first and foremost, just that parents have the transparency
What's
to
the-
know what's being taught. So if they don't agree with it, they can pull out. Despite
Yeah.
what I
Thanks, Christina.
agree or disagree
Right, like
with.
opt-in versus
That's what
opt-out
I feel
is
like
a
that
question.
should be. That's a
just
fair,
wanna talk about
logical
Can we get the
conversation.
I just don't want to talk during
It's
CNAPS
not,
week.
from
Just
what
like
I
this is
understand, it's hard to find.
Yeah, like, why are they doing it during
This woman said she found it no problem.
Yeah, my
too. I
son
talked to
came
other
home just
parents
like crying
that have had a hard time. And in high school, every school is different. It's not the same in every school.
Right.
And so, for example, I know somebody
That's a
that's
really
in
good point.
Basalt High
I
School.
like said something and I was like, I shouldn't say something, but I'm gonna say it anyways
Begged
because
mom to
36 and I don't give a shit.
them in to this program because they felt that they were being up
What
there.
are other topics that you want to talk
It's
about
really
today?
hard for the moms
Like,
to stay up there. The teacher can only let
I've
her
been
know what
so impressed by the kindergarten and the elementary school. I mean, it's like the whole class is reading. Kids that don't speak English at home, like they are all reading. They're doing so well. It's incredibly impressive, and so I wanted to make sure, like, I've been thrilled. I've been really impressed. My daughter loves her kindergarten teacher. She thinks he's the best person in the world. So that's been like really, really great to see. And I think, like, I know budget is hard. Budget is hard, and like I love that she's learning Spanish. Like, that's amazing. Learning a second language early will make it much easier to learn other languages, and it's just good for your brain. So really support that. And I think, like, the only thing I don't know if the ACES teachers maybe need a little more classroom management training. I think it's such a great program, and I love that they're learning that. I think that those teachers tend to be younger. I think, and just if we can support them with a little more classroom management. I worry if they're having trouble controlling a group of kindergartners. That seems like, and I think they're doing the best they can, and I think like, and if we just let those kids go like outside, like why are they watching a video about bugs when they could go outside and catch the bugs? Because I think like my daughter went to Wildkinder, she had Sarah, she loves being outside, and I've consistently heard amongst like her and like all her friends, kids love being outside. Aces is their least favorite special. They're sort of like, oh, Aces, and that. And I think it's partially because of the classroom management. So we're like, how can you dislike Aces? Like, you should love this. I'm surprised it's not your favorite. And she's like, well, the boys cause trouble, and then we just have to like sit and like do something silently.
I think my idea is like, why not combine ACEs with STEM? Let's lump the sciences together, bring ACEs instructors in to do Hallam Lake, to do Rock Bottom Ranch, to do nature studies, to do the dissection, and then have the rest of the time doing other sciences. I don't know. That's
like one devoted whole class that could be diversified a little bit.
Because it seems like a lot of those instructors are in the process of getting their teacher's license, maybe? I don't know. But just like, I know that there's a financial reason because it is subsidized, but I don't know if that's a good enough reason to utilize it if it's not delivering.
Totally, Kosh, you're just like naming some of our key challenges right now. For those of you guys who don't know, we have a partnership with ACES Aspen. It's CRES where they staff. I think it's good feedback because I can't speak too specifically to the nitty gritties of how it works because it is we were talking about loose and tight. This is one of those areas where like the school really holds that contract and it happens at CRES and it's not
And
really a
BES.
district.
They have the same. It's one of the rotation.
It's
It's
those
a
two.
really cool
It's
idea,
super
and I
cool.
love
Yeah.
ACEs.
Oh
my
my God,
brother-in-law's been really
Well,
involved in
and
ACEs. Like,
secretly, like we've stolen really great educators from that program.
Oh, yeah.
Riley.
oh
Was
yeah,
an
she came
ACES
up through it.
teacher, which is really funny. And it's really crazy. Years and years and years ago, I taught like in New England at these like science, kind of like Keystone Science School. I taught about. Kendall Riley was one of my students, which is so crazy. Probably 40 years ago. Anyway, but so we partner with ACES, and then what that means is that like we share that position. But what your feedback brought up for me is I don't know if our instructional team coaches those teachers. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're a new teacher in the Warren Forest Schools in the first 3 years, like you have your principal, of course, coaching and evaluating you, but you have you have to go through this induction process, and you have a coach from the district that's in your classroom all the time, giving you feedback all the time on classroom management, talking to your principal. We have a whole platform. This is all tied to our strategic plan. We have a whole platform for coaching so that like if I'm a new teacher and John's my coach and Sarah's my principal, they're all seeing the same notes that like, oh, John's been working with Anna on XYZ and Sarah comes in and helps me. I don't know if we do that for ACE. I have no idea, which is really interesting because I should know.
It's a great way to get new teachers. Like, I think there's a lot of people that have like, they're like, oh, I'm gonna do this out of college and do this. I like kids, and then they're like, oh, I actually really like this, and they go on to, be full-time teachers and like really invest in education, and I think it's a great resource.
Such a cool partnership. And I'll say too, the other thing, and I know all of you are engaged, you're here, this is coming. Worse, as you know, like the challenge of declining enrollment, which is hitting our schools, it's hitting our state, it's hitting our country, it's hitting our small, high cost of living school districts very similarly, which is really interesting, like Summit, Vale, which is Eagle School District, Steamboat, Aspen, Telluride, they all, like we did, underperformed their enrollment projections this last year. And it's a multitude of factors, from birth rates to online schools and homeschool, and there's a lot of factors. But we run really small schools, and they are continuing to get smaller, and I think because of partnerships with like ACES or Aspen Music School, in various groups, we've been able to continue to support learning environments for kids that offer all these really cool things. Where often schools at 300 or 350, like you start losing your ability to do all these things. But because of these kinds of partnerships, we can still offer the classes. I share your concern of like, if it's not high quality, should we be doing it, right? Like there's a cost there of like, it's great to offer art classes, And if you don't have a great teacher in there, it might be better to do STEM. It might be, you know what I mean? And we've had to make really hard decisions because we really struggled to recruit teachers. Folks would tell me 10, 15 years ago, you get 40 applicants for a third grade teacher. We're lucky to get 2. And then that doesn't say anything for special education, calculus. I mean, those folks are like unicorns. We don't know where they are. So it's just an interesting tension that I think we're gonna have to grapple with as a community of what does it mean to have a comprehensive education, and what are the cost benefits of small schools as we try to navigate that. And partnerships like ACES, like they're amazing, and we would not be able to do what we do. Similar to ACES, the Buddy program at a lot of our high schools offers these amazing outdoor leadership classes, and kids are getting these really cool credentials because they're layering like Buddy program, CMC coursework, and like the kids are doing hut trips and getting their woofer training, becoming firefighters, and those partnerships are going to become more and more important for us. They still have to be high quality. Anyway, I'm just naming it because it's attention. Where we're headed.
Like through social and through jujitsu, and like we know tons of homeschooling families, and the majority of the homeschooling families I know have sort of echoed this "we want to get the kids outside" concept. And one of the reasons I've been pushing my co-parent to homeschool, one of the primary reasons, I would say the number one reason, is there's so many screens at school, and then he comes home with his Chromebook to do his homework. He can't, his handwriting is, my 5th grader, 11-year-old, his handwriting is so abysmal. And I'm concerned that if we don't get an opt-out of Chromebook option, he will really struggle. It affects fine motor skills. He's plateaued in musical instruments. He's on the Chromebook way too much. And then when he comes home, I'm excited to do homework with him, and I grab my pencil and my notepad, and he pulls out the Chromebook. And so I think we're really overusing screens. My strong feeling from my personal community is that parents, especially a household like mine where we have no iPad and we have no television in our home, but the school is forcing us to use screens at home when we're a no-screen house.
Gosh, it's such a good tension. I'm so glad you named it. And if you're watching across the country, that push is, you're not alone. Like
Sweden is
it
banned
so
in schools now.
Right? Like I get it because it's astounding. I'm so glad you said it. And I think I just love that we have these meetings to hear that is, because it has been, I'm watching it in the education news, that parents are starting to push back on the really, is this how we're learning? Is this what we're doing? And so I think it's a conversation we need to keep having.
So how can we have that? Because I feel like we all have these thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never come to one of these. I'm like, I'm going to come because it's like, I fill out the survey and I'm like, okay, I have this concern.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll come share it. But I feel like there's a lack. I don't know. Maybe it's my perception, right? Yeah. I don't know where to share. Like, I don't know where people are commenting.
Yeah.
Like, where this discussion is happening. And I think we could have a really rich discussion on technology. That's why I came, because I'm really concerned about all the assessment on technology, especially as young as like 2nd grade. 2nd graders should not be assessed on a computer. Like, I've worked with kids who are dyslexic. I'm like, they should. And my daughter, like, she's being assessed right now in CMAS. The girl, like, I would love to take a typing test for all these kids at 5th grade. Like, they are not qualified typers to be assessed to like keep up with their train of thought.
They can't even spell because the Chromebook has spell check.
I know. So I would like, I can't come Friday because I'd love to talk about this, and I know we're like wrapping up, but like, I feel like, on that survey that we fill out and you beg us,
How can we?
like,
feel
how
like
can
we're
we
being
talk
heard?
more?
Because
Because
to be
I feel
honest,
like
everyone I talk to says they feel like any conversation falls on deaf ears, including school board, coffee chats.
like, I didn't want to fill out the survey because I was like, I don't know, this takes my time and energy, and last year I kind of ranted about a few things, and it's like, I don't know where that goes. So it's like, there's a lot of us out here who like are committed community members and really care about our schools, but it's like hard to know where to share.
Yeah,
because it's like board meetings, like
Oh, they're terrible.
Their
I
their
love
agendas
board,
are full.
But school governance,
Like,
it's
I
like the
just-
whole thing, right? Like you come to that board meeting, it is the public comment, and it's just the nature of that. I mean, it absolutely is noted, but I agree that it's it sets up attention. I mean, it's the way the room's set up, it's the vibe, it's the thing.
Kind of
like,
power dynamic.
There's a power it's a whole thing. So I hear you completely. I mean, I think these are really important. I learn
District
a lot.
accountability committees, do those help with this sort of thing? I honestly have not been to one.
Okay.
I know Elizabeth's
I wanted,
involved.
I wanted to just say I need to go. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
so fun.
being at this roundtable and that we all came today to just talk about whatever topics we wanted to talk about. And again, I would just like to reiterate that the cell phone policy is coming up. So just as parents in the community, we can have conversations with just our friends, our neighbors, the mom that we know because our kids play together. And just see how we can really make this a successful policy for our school. And then I just wanted to say that I've really appreciated the school accountability groups. I've found that it's a really intimate, nice way to get to know each other in our community and the administration at the school. So I've participated in the Carbondale Middle School one, and Sean and I feel like those have been really productive meetings over at Roaring Fork High School. And it was just great to just be able to hear from everyone in the room.
It was really productive.
Yeah, and then my daughter also at the high school. There's opportunities for the kids to be involved. So she's, I think she's in the superintendent group. But there's also like a principal group. So it's students who can be involved and just be a voice for themselves or their friends, or just be the boots on the ground to give student feedback to the administration. So I've found it was really worthwhile and fruitful. So.
And the principals will do a good job of explaining that loose tight of where is something that the school can decide and where it's something that it's a district issue. And I would say, and that's where the district accountability committee is working more on district type issues. And that is a good spot for bringing up issues like technology. I mean, I would also say, I totally hear you on the technology. I think it's something that we're going to have to start grappling with. The first step is to get personal cell phones out of schools. But I would say, we do read the public comments. It does matter. And when we read, I would encourage you all, if you feel that about screens, to be absolutely get rid of cell phones, and can we talk about Chromebooks?
Yeah.
Say it. And to be
Like
honest,
at the library, we went through an AI policy. And we went over and over and over every little detail, every little consideration for the privacy of the public, for the, integrity of the staff and the proofreading. And I wonder, do we have an actual policy on technology?
we have some that are kind of related. We have an AI practice tool.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, and if you guys have to go,
Thanks
please
for
go.
sharing.
The other thing I would say is y'all, we work really, really hard to live and work and send our kids to schools in small towns. I don't have an administrative assistant. I don't. Just email me. That matters to me, and I do hear. When you send me emails direct, when you come to these things, I'm hearing it. I'm paying attention. To be honest, this conversation about technology has been one that I've been thinking we need to have, sometimes I know it's frustrating because people are when are we going to do this thing? And I will say that we move really slow, and especially the board moves really slow. All this stuff about health education, they kind of have to agree to task me to do something that then I'll report back. So we are listening, and I still hear your frustration. And I would first say you're always welcome to email me. Just Anna, when are we going to talk about this? People want to talk about this. For example, my first year, we had a bunch of community safety forums because that was really coming up. It was bubbling up. I was hearing it from these kind of groups, just hearing what are you doing? What are we doing to keep our schools safe? There had been a lot of school shootings. We had some lockdowns. And so we, in response, did a whole bunch of community outreach, and we actually ended up hiring a school safety and security coordinator. And then about 6 months ago, things started to bubble up about safety again. And so then we had another round of safety forums. To be honest, after even this conversation, I'm we're going to have some technology conversations where we just do some road shows. We talk about our current practices. We talk about our current policies. and then we listen to people, like what's working, not working, where do you want to see us go as a district.
What do you mean by road shows? Like, are you going to do like a community hall kind of thing? 'Cause
Yeah, I mean,
evenings would be
probably.
good too, because a lot of people can't do mornings.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. No, I would. Yeah, what we did initially with the community safety forums, when I would say like a road show, and this is pretty much what we did for safety, and we did a lighter version this winter, and Christina helps me with these. But the road, when I would call it a road show, what we did 2 years ago was we went to Glenwood, Carbondale, Basalt in the evenings. We did like 45 minutes of here's what we're currently doing on safety. Here's the policies, practices. Here's how we think about it. Here's how we stack up against research. Here's our big gaps. We actually had all the chiefs of police joined us, and I gave them the mic and said, what are we doing well, what are we doing poorly? And they all pretty much said, you're doing a lot well, and you got to get rid of open campuses. And to be honest, I need to hear more from the community before we can do something about that. But I think for technology, we'd probably do something similar, where we would do these evening meetings. We would have our director of technology, we'd have some of our instructional people talk about why Chromebooks, why curriculum this way, what do our current policies state, what are we doing about AI, which I'll be honest, very little right now. And then create space for parents to talk about what matters to them, what your interests are, what your priorities are, and that it's slow, but it is a way that we would talk. We do look at the parent surveys, like we do
Okay.
The schools are expected to review those and especially every year, every school has to do a unified improvement plan. That's what the state calls it. We would call it a strategic plan for that year. Mm-hmm. The only way they get off the hook is if they're really high performing, and then they don't have to do it for 2 years. We make them do it anyway. And they have to have parent communication and engagement goals, and we make them pull from the parent survey, like what are you doing poorly at, and how are you going to then address that in your plan. So there is, like those surveys, we do use them, and I definitely use them at the district level, and it closes Friday, so definitely jump in there, do that thing. These really these conversations matter. The District Accountability Committee, they're meeting tonight. I'm meeting with them tonight to talk about some charter school stuff that's coming up. And frankly, like the District Accountability Committee will say, hey, Anna, we want to talk about this. We need you to come. And I come. So I'll do that. I'm trying to think, Christine, what am I missing of other ways to connect?
One of the interesting
address,
things.
like the whole school, and assemble the whole
Never.
school and tell them about things.
Rarely do I pull everybody together. I don't know.
You don't have an assembly.
I know. We don't even pull all staff because there's so many. We're so spread out with everybody being everywhere. I mean,
Put them on to the auditorium and talk about
be able to talk about it.
The most transparent thing I've ever seen presented before me as a board member is we just did, probably everyone here received the tech survey from the libraries, and talking about extending the mill levy, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that we did with our responses to surveys, because I know yesterday I spent at least 30 minutes, maybe closer to an hour, really responding mindfully and carefully to the survey. And the library has been good about taking all the responses, categorizing them, and saying 6% responded that they're unhappy about collections. 8% responded that they are concerned about the reserves. 12% said we don't want to do expansion of Carbondale Library. Whatever it was, at least the public knows that the library is listening. And I feel like with the schools, I don't feel like I'm being heard. And it could be as simple as saying 3% of moms are concerned about Chromebooks, 12% of moms and dads or families or parents or whatever you call it, respondents, said we want worksheets back in the classroom. So then at least we know, okay, the board is going to get actual data to make decisions, not public comment is a horrible way to present decisions for the board, because then they can say, this is a fringe minority. Whereas if we sit there and we say, like, I brought the library thing with me, but we know exactly who responded to what and what they're saying. That's the only way the board can actually represent the whole community.
But to that end, you have people who don't see the newsletter, right? Or who don't have access, right? So there are contingents of the population that might not respond. So is it a full scope of the population? Like, how many people don't see it and are like, I don't have time for that, right? Like, you have a demographic of people who are willing and able and interested in responding, and so you can have percentages of people who respond, but I wouldn't say that that's like a cross section of everybody.
Right, that's true. Just like in a clinical trial in medicine, where you say we had 45 participants between ages 35 and 42, and you're like, well, that's a crappy trial. You know what I mean? Like, it's better that you have 10,000, 12,000 participants. I agree. I don't know if we can force parents to take time out to do it.
Well, I know my husband, he was like, gosh, they really want us to take the survey. And I was like, yeah, go fill it out. But I think it's like, if you're generally happy with how things are going, I think those people are like less inclined. They're like, I don't have a ton of feedback. Like, things are good. I don't need to fill out the survey. Like, why am I just ignore? And so it's like people that do have like, oh, I have this concern and this concern. And that, like, those are the people that are more motivated to fill out the survey. And I think there is never going to be a way we're going to get a perfect response rate or like hear from everyone. So I think it is just getting a mix. I think the survey is a great tool.
It's great, and we need to present facts to the board, not public. No offense to people who leave public comment. It's great, but it's the people on the extremes of the argument. And so that data, that might be the only way we can collect data. It's not like we have our RE1 Census Bureau.
We're just reminding people, like, please fill this out even if you don't have concerns. I felt like, health curriculum, I was like, oh gosh, this came home and I didn't say anything because I was like, yep, great, looks good. And then I didn't say anything, and then it sort of blew up and I was like, oh, I should have said something. But it just, like, it didn't occur to me to say anything because I was like, looks good, nothing to add. And so, but the people that were concerned really spoke up, and then it sort of blew up. So I think it's like trying to find a way to encourage people to communicate or say that communication is helpful.
Well, and that's what I'm hearing you say a lot, is that, and this is a piece that I know that we need to do better at, is like closing the loop, right? Like to say, we heard you, this is what the survey told us. And even what I just told you about schools using their parent surveys to build their strategic plans, I bet nobody knows that. Yeah. I bet no schools have the bandwidth to say, hey, we got this really interesting data in the spring and we're using it in the fall. Where I do know they're talking about it is the school accountability committees. Like, they're supposed to be presenting that data to the parents, but I don't know that we always get that next step of getting it out. And I know we're at time, so I want to make sure that you all know how to get in touch with me, and if there's burning stuff we didn't talk about, that at least I write it down. What I was going to say, I do want to come back to, because I love this theme about communication, and I will note just two things that I'm hoping will help. One is the parent square, like in terms of streamlining and having access to this information, and parents will start getting more info about this probably in May. I mean, I think we literally have a meeting with them tomorrow about like launching and data things. But it should really help give us a stronger tool for so much of what you're talking about. The other thing that I'll just name is, like, when it comes, and this is why I say just email me, when it comes to district communications, you're looking at the team, right? There is nobody behind the curtain. Like, Christina manages our website. She pushes out the community newsletter. She runs the staff newsletter. She's training our communication leads at every school, who also happen to be mostly full-time teachers or front office staff. Like, we don't have a big team. Because of funding stressors and frankly, like, a lot of pressure and optics on the size of the district office team, which is fair. We haven't had a public information officer for a really long time. We had some natural attrition. We shifted some jobs around. And we're in the process right now of trying to hire a 0.5, because that's all we can afford right now, but public information officer. So I do know that we're trying to create some structural things to get better. And I will say, like, just thank you for being here and doing this work and coming up with, like, care and compassion in the way this group just talked and shared. I'm just really grateful for. So don't feel like you have to go.
Can I insert a question
Yeah.
on the funding issue? I'm just curious, the Roaring Fork Valley District is what we call it, right? Roaring Fork Schools. The Roaring Fork River starts above Aspen. Why is Aspen its own district? This is no, but it's real. Like, this is a real question. Like, why are the real estate taxes for that area only going to those schools when a lot of the service industry is serviced by the rest of the valley? That money should be collected. In my mind, it's the Roaring Fork Valley. And I want to understand why there's like, okay, basalt, and then I don't understand that.
No, you know, and it's so interesting. I would love to know the history of like school district lanes. I mean, I'll be honest. Do you know who's not in our district? Is the Marvel Charter School. They're Gunnison.
Yeah, because the county line.
Like what? If Gunnison, like you can't even get to Gunnison. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean the county lines
right?
make no
And can we
sense.
just talk about Eagle County and that weird?
It does seem a little crazy that they have like a flight simulator.
They have a flight.
They have a flight simulator, and we're like, can we have a STEM class, please?
We have a math teacher. Right.
It's no. I will say. I mean, one thing that's interesting because I want
My
to.
son was in Aspen schools, and
gosh,
I
you
was
guys.
like, "Whoa,
Oh,
you
it's
guys!"
insane. It's so
That's
different.
insane
I
what
mean,
they have.
Let's be honest. Like
And we're losing
Aspen,
people to that.
We
Like,
totally are. They're losing kids faster than we are, and
They
the
want
way
our
that they're
kids.
stabilizing. Anyway, we
Yeah.
could talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to say because I think it's important is the county commissioners are very aware of this, and so we do receive direct funding from Pitkin County and Eagle County. Pitkin's quite they give us the same amount of fund. Like, so it's not perfect, but I will say some of these structures do work.
Okay.
Pitkin County gives us the exact same amount of per pupil funding they give Aspen School District that supports an SRO in Basalt in Carbondale. So some of that money goes there, and some of their money goes to school-based mental health. So the mental health providers in the high schools, and Eagle County similarly helps us fund a school-based mental health in Basalt. It's not perfect, but I will say those counties acknowledge where their voters are, and that like the Crystal River Valley, there's a little bit of that in Pitkin. So but I hear you, it doesn't always make sense. But you guys, I'm a@rfschools.com. So if you did not get to answer questions, like please follow up, and just thank you.
thank you.